And this changes.
Come on, clean.
They can make it from here on through.
Yellow here, brown nose damage, guys. Outside, just a single outside. Hang on to it, hold the brake.
At the end of this race, you just have to have a set of those
Hold the brake.
sitting in the pits in order to be in contention to win.
Katherine Legge, a 44-year-old veteran with extensive motorsport experience, made her highly anticipated NASCAR Cup Series debut at Phoenix Raceway during the Shriners Children's 500. Despite her impressive racing background in other disciplines, Legge entered the competition with minimal stock car racing experience, a factor that would prove significant as events unfolded throughout the race weekend. The Cup Series represents the highest level of stock car competition, featuring the most skilled and experienced drivers in the discipline. This environment presented a formidable challenge for Legge as she attempted to transition her racing expertise to this specialized format of motorsport. Legge's difficulties began almost immediately after the green flag dropped. Only 4 laps into her Cup Series debut, she experienced her first major setback when she lost control of her vehicle and spun out on the track. Following this incident, Legge communicated with her team over the radio, saying, "Hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm so tight. I have so much wheel in it that it got loose on exit, but it's because I'm so tight." This early challenge signaled the complications Legge was facing in adapting to the Cup Series car. The handling characteristics of stock cars differ substantially from the open wheel and sports cars she had primarily raced throughout her career, requiring different techniques and approaches to maintain control at high speeds. Later in the race, a more consequential incident occurred. Legge was involved in another spin after contact with a competitor, and this time the consequences extended beyond her own race. As her car spun, it collected the vehicle of full-time Cup Series driver Daniel Suarez. This collision effectively ended the day for both drivers, forcing them to retire prematurely from the competition. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, Daniel Suarez expressed his frustration through both his team radio and post-race comments. His criticism, however, was directed not at Legge personally, but at NASCAR's approval process that allowed her to compete at the Cup Series level without prior stock car racing experience. Suarez stated directly, "The problem is there's nothing wrong with her. What is wrong is NASCAR. What is wrong is NASCAR. They cannot allow somebody with no experience to run in the Cup Series, plain and simple." This critique from an established Cup Series competitor immediately highlighted the broader implications of the incident beyond a simple racing collision. It raised questions about driver preparation, qualification standards, and NASCAR's responsibility to maintain both competitive integrity and safety.
And I think that having diversity in the sport is something that is extremely important, very, very valuable. Having Hispanics, having African Americans, having women, I think is super important. There's nothing wrong with her. It's just the process. I think the process has to be so much better. We're talking about an elite series. If I want to.
In the days following the race, reports indicated that Suarez had softened his stance somewhat and had personally reached out to Legge to discuss the situation. This gesture suggested a recognition that the issue extended beyond the individual driver to the systems and processes that regulate driver participation. Kyle Busch, a 2-time Cup Series champion and one of NASCAR's most accomplished active drivers, added significant weight to the discussion when asked about the approval process at Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend. Busch revealed that his concerns about NASCAR's driver approval procedures were not new, but part of a long-standing pattern he had observed. Busch stated, "Yeah, I don't have a great answer. I feel like I've questioned the approval process for a long time." Busch drew from his personal experience as a team owner in the Truck Series with Kyle Busch Motorsports, which ceased operations after the 2023 season, to highlight what he perceived as inconsistencies in NASCAR's approach to driver approvals. Being an owner in the Truck Series and seeing some young drivers get opportunities at different tracks versus my drivers that I was trying to get them opportunities at some of those same tracks getting denied. So I was very confused. And probably I'm even more confused now on how it all works. I think it's broken. This assessment from one of the sport's most recognizable figures demonstrated that the concerns about driver approval standards extended beyond the immediate incident with Legge to a broader pattern of decision-making that had affected multiple teams and drivers over time. Beyond simply identifying problems with the existing system, Busch proposed specific changes to the approval process. His critique centered on who makes these critical decisions within NASCAR's organizational structure, Busch said, "I also do feel as though it shouldn't be suit and ties making the decisions always. Certainly there can be some that need to be involved, but I do feel like there needs to be fire suits involved in some of those decision-making processes on those that need to be approved or not approved for various activities." This statement represented a direct challenge to NASCAR's administrative approach, suggesting that active or former drivers, those who have worn fire suits and competed at the highest levels, should have substantial input into decisions about who qualifies to join their ranks. Busch extended this principle beyond driver approvals to include other administrative decisions such as penalties. Referencing a separate incident involving driver Austin Cindric at Circuit of the Americas, Busch stated, "I don't think the suit and ties should be making that decision. I think you should get penalized by your peers." This comprehensive critique pointed to a fundamental disconnect between NASCAR's administrative structure and the practical realities faced by competitors on the track, as perceived by one of the sport's most experienced participants. The controversy prompted responses from numerous other prominent Cup Series drivers, many of whom echoed Busch's concerns while offering their own perspectives on the situation. Denny Hamlin, another veteran driver and team co-owner, supported the call for stricter approval standards while expressing sympathy for Legge's difficult position. He said, "There probably needs to be a stricter process than what it is. Just, and I hate how last week played out because I feel bad for Katherine. I told friends and Kyle Larson at the drivers' meeting how impressed I was that she was only a second off in that car, and having never run this kind of series," Hamlin continued by addressing the broader implications for NASCAR. "I just hate it for her. It's not fair to her that she's getting the brunt of all this scrutiny, but it does open eyes, and should open eyes, that we're not very strict on who gets to run Cup cars. It shouldn't be. You should just come in whenever you want." Chase Elliott framed the issue in terms of the Cup Series position as the premier NASCAR competition, saying, "My quick thoughts are that this is the pinnacle of NASCAR. This is supposed to be the very top tier of what NASCAR has to offer within this discipline, so I do think we need to make sure everyone is ready to go." Joey Logano advocated for greater structure in the approval process, saying, "I think there's got to be more structure around it. I think we're pretty just willy-nilly with it on whether you've raced in the last 10 years or not, or what did you race? It might be a better question. There's a balance in here somewhere that what makes sense." Logano drew comparisons to Formula One's licensing requirements and argued that proper preparation is essential. If you've never driven a stock car, should you just jump in a Cup car with 20 minutes of practice and line up and race? There's a line between entertainment and safety. Kyle Larson acknowledged the apparent inconsistency in approval decisions. Larson said, "It is surprising sometimes when some drivers are not allowed to run and then others are. So yeah, I don't know, maybe there just needs to be a better something in place." The discussion around Legge's debut frequently referenced Shane Van Gisbergen's contrasting experience when he entered NASCAR. Van Gisbergen, a three-time Supercars champion, made his Cup Series debut at the Chicago Street Circuit in 2023 and won the race, an unprecedented achievement for a debut driver. Van Gisbergen described his own rigorous approval process prior to being permitted to compete. "For a road course, I think it's different, but for an oval, I would never have wanted to do what Katherine or others have done, and jumped straight in. It's so difficult, and there's no practice." He detailed the extensive preparation he underwent. "I had to spend a whole day at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval with Brett Bodine having to prove to the veteran racer that I could drive at this level. I had to turn 40 laps that Monday or Tuesday before Bodine formally signed off on the entry." This comparison highlighted not only the different approval standards applied to different drivers, but also the distinction between road course and oval racing, with the latter generally considered more specialized and requiring more stock car-specific experience. Throughout the discussion, drivers and commentators proposed various solutions to improve the driver approval process and better prepare newcomers for Cup Series competition. Kyle Busch addressed the financial constraints involved in preparation while suggesting a practical compromise.
Want to come run. Testing is tough because obviously I would say that if we're talking about Katherine's situation, I don't know how much extra funds there are there with that situation to be able to go out to Phoenix a week early and go test. You know what I mean? But that obviously would be.
He continued with a specific proposal.
How that all works, I'm not exactly sure. If it's a 4-hour session on Thursday or Friday or like the day before something, I think that could certainly be a waiver piece that is allowed for, some first timers.